Welcome to the Kuj Show, Empower Yourself. Today's topic, what rich people know about creating and maintaining wealth that most of us do not. My special guest for the next hour or so is Terrence Rice, chairman and founder of the Greenlight Corporation family of companies. He's a seasoned serial entrepreneur, accredited private investor, philanthropist, author, business, money and wealth coach, as well as a public speaker with over 25 years of experience and success in business with offices based in New York. Welcome, Mr. Rice. How are you doing? Such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Good evening, Coach. It's a deep pleasure to be on with you today. If I was any better, I'd be two people.
On today's show, we're going to divide it into two parts. The first part is just going to be background about yourself. And the second part is going to be about the principles that you've discovered on your path of how to be successful in this industry. First of all, let's get a little bit of background about yourself. Where did you go to school and how did you get started?
Well, I was born in, I'm a New York City boy, born and bred. I was born in Manhattan, but raised in Queens. So I went up through the New York City school system in Queens and graduated from Martin Van Buren High School in the top 5% of my class.
And then you went to technical college, Rochester Institute of Technology, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. I went to RIT, affectionately known as Brick City.
And what did you get your degree in there?
I got my undergrad degree, my bachelor's of science in electrical engineering. So I graduated as an electrical engineer. One of the other things about RIT, it was a 5.5-year journey for a 4-year degree because they included and felt was critical to have at least a year and a half of actual work experience. So I actually got to work at some major corporations in the engineering departments during my college sojourn.
And one of your, and your second degree was at the New York Institute of Technology, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Kuj. I got my grad degree in comp sci, that's computer science, from NYIT, New York Institute of Technology, out in Westbury, New York, Long Island.
And while you were at college, you worked at the Harris Corporation,
yes,
one of the major computer corporations in the country. And then your first big job, what was that?
Well, my first big job after graduating from college, I can remember putting out dozens and dozens of applications. And I wasn't getting a whole lot of interest. I had a few interviews, but didn't seem like a whole lot of things were taken light. Then I saw an ad in the New York Times. And this ad was about as small a piece of real estate as you could have. And engineering and technical candidates call this gentleman who happened to be a headhunter. I called him. And he basically said, well, it sounds to me like you're entry level. I said, well, the whole reason I spent 5.5 years for a 4-year degree is because I have a 1.5 years of real world paid work experience. So I'm not entry level. And he said, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Less filling, tastes great. So I went back and forth a little bit. He said, you're just the kind of guy I want to have go to this interview. I thought it was an argument, but he sent it to the interview with Bertan Associates, which at the time was a $10 million manufacturer of high voltage power supplies. I later learned, Kuj, to my surprise, that I was the only candidate he sent to the interview. I met with both principals, Howard and Lester Bertan, and I got the job.
So, in short order, you were able to rise, I guess, to about 90K in the, what was that, early 80s?
Yeah, to the mid to late 80s, I was making about $90,000 in the 80s. So that was certainly good money for a W-2 job.
You got married, you had 2 kids.
Yeah.
You had a lovely wife, the daughter of one of the government officials from one of our Caribbean neighbors. Then got to be about your 30s. What went wrong?
Well, life got in the way of living, Cooch. I got laid off from my job first. And the reason why this was so traumatic and disruptive, I had just got married maybe 2 years prior. My son was maybe a year old. I don't even think he was a year old. So, I had the great American dream. I had, the house in the suburbs and the 2 cars and the mortgage. So I had a life. And here it is. This layoff comes unexpectedly where arguably I'm at the top of my game with my employer. I had just brought in $2 million worth of business, and I wasn't in sales, Coach. So I was running sales around the vice president of sales. And I was their main project director. I had 15 people reported me. So I'm very much an asset to the company. And here it is on a Friday in July of that year, I get called into the vice chairman's office and unceremoniously told the news that I was being laid off, budget cuts.
So now you have to find a part-time job as an adjunct professor at a local college. You have financial problems. Your marriage gets into straits from financial difficulties. And how do you get out of that?
Well, usually when a door closes, a window opens. And so that was the case here. Like you said, when I lost my job and the first year of my business, it was languishing. It was a fledgling business. I was making money, Cooch, but it wasn't enough to pay the bills on time. So I had bills in arrears and I had bill collectors calling. Now I fielded those calls, but of course that put a lot of friction between me and my wife at the time. I took on evening employment in the form of adjunct faculty at 2 local Long Island colleges and universities. And that brought in some extra money. And therein was my destiny and my fortune started there. As I was teaching computer courses to adult students, so most of these students I had, Cooch, were people who were managers of big companies, or they were owners of their own business. And they just wanted to have an environment that they could learn about computers without being judged for their ignorance. So they would ask me, "You don't have your own company?" And I said, "No, why?" They said, "Well, we would retain you, we would hire you." And so that began the interest on my part to begin to think about opening my own business in the technology space in computer services.
You told me an interesting story prior to the show about one of your students. You're inviting him to come back. Yeah,
interesting you mentioned that. One of my students took 2 of the 3 classes. It was in my cluster, 3-class cluster. He wanted to come back after he graduated and just talk about the state of the market, the computer industry. And so it didn't cost me anything. I thought it was current and relevant information. So I allowed him to come back. He talked for about 15 or 20 minutes during my class at the beginning. And he handed out brochures and business cards. So about 3 months later, to my surprise, Cooch, I got a check for over $2,000 in the mail to my house. And it was from this gentleman's company. And so I called him up and I said, "Paul, I think there's been some major mistake, happy accident. I got a check in the mail from your company." And he said, "No, that's your check. That's a commission to you because the students that you introduced me to, a number of them bought computers from me." So then the wheels began to turn and gyrate, Cooch, because I said, if this gentleman can give me over $2,000 a commission for students that I introduced him for class, I didn't do anything but allowed him a chance to speak, then how much money is he making? So I began to ask myself that question. He must be making a lot of money he can afford to do that.
Well, that leads us to the critical part of this program, the principles and strategies that you employ to create wealth. Because you went on from there to, by the time you were 40, create a $30 million corporation and retire in your early 40s.
Right.
So let's talk about some of these principles. The first one that you brought to my attention was forming a relationship with people with wealth and convincing them to tell you how they were doing it. How did that happen? How did you meet your billionaires?
Well, as you said, Coach, once I got the company going, it still languished for a number of years. But through trial and error, failure and success, but mostly I had met millionaires, multi-millionaires, mega millionaires, and at least 2 billionaires. And each of these individuals gave me a crumb of wisdom. They each gave me a pearl of insight, instruction, and knowledge. And over the years, I met hundreds of these people, and I got thousands of crumbs of wisdom, instruction, and knowledge. And I baked a cake. And so how you meet these people is, my best recommendation is I always cultivated a habit of having something worthwhile to say and always having questions that were insightful, that showed you had done some research. And I found out that the wealthy are very, very eager and very, very happy to extend themselves to give you some answers. They're not going to give you all the answers, but they're going to give you some.
Who was the first billionaires that you met?
The first 2 billionaires I met, Charles Wang, formerly the chairman and CEO of Computer Associates, which is a large computer software company out in Islandia, Long Island. He was the first person I met. And at that same conference, Bill Gates was also in the audience. And if I'm not mistaken, Steve Jobs was there as well. So it was the big three. So this was back in the early 90s.
What did you learn from them?
It's kind of counterintuitive. The first thing I learned, and I think Charles Wang was the best representation of this, is that for the most part, in their personal and private personas, they were humble men. I learned that arrogance, ego, pride, and vanity are all premiums. They're luxuries that you can basically ill afford to have in business because you pay for them. They'll make you do things you shouldn't be doing, and they will discourage you from doing things you should. And Charles Wang especially came right out into the crowd. He actually jumped out in the crowd before a security detail could even precede him and just started shaking hands. And I was among the first hands he shook. And I said, Mr. Wang, it's a pleasure to meet you. And he said, what did you say? I said, Mr. Wang, it's my honor to meet you. I've studied a lot about your company and philosophies. He said, oh no, call me Charles. And we had about a half-hour conversation right there as the security looked. So I was struck by the humility in their personal and private personas.
Now, one of the principles that you shared with me was the concept that there are 2 types of people in the world that you have to understand and know how to work with.
Yes.
Could you explain that?
Well, the rich shared with me the principles over the years. Now, it was thousands of them, Kuj. It wasn't just one specific person, although some contributed more than others until this grand success formula that I came up with. But basically, the number one principle of my success formula that I derived from my interactions with the rich, there's actually 2 types of people on the planet. And those people are very simply living people, so I'm talking about human beings, and legal people. And when I say legal people, I'm talking about those artificial people whose group includes estates, trusts, LLCs, and corporations, are all people just like you and I. Matter of fact, Cooch, they're exactly like you and I. They're protected, privileged, and righted under the Constitution of the United States, just like the two of us on this call. They're privileged, righted, and recognized under the laws of your home state, whether you live in New Jersey and New York or Florida, where you are, or any other state in the union. They have every right and privilege and recognition you have. They can own every asset, Kuj, that you own. They can have homes. My corporation, Greenlight, has owns 3 homes in the Northeast that I am privileged to be an authorized occupant in too. And Greenlight owns these homes. Vehicles and other cars. Greenlight has a little mini fleet of BMWs because, Kuj, as you know, we call ourselves business, money, and wealth coaches. So we're BMW coaches. So what would you expect BMW coaches to drive? But those cars are all titled, insured, and registered to the various Greenlight companies. And, you know, all the bank accounts are in the company's name. So they taught me that they leverage, control, and exploit artificial people, legal people, to their ultimate financial benefit. So the two people are equivalent, Kuj, in terms of legal rights, protections, and recognitions. But as it relates to money, that's where the fork in the road, and these legal people run circles around us humans.
Now, another one of your principles is to pay the minimum tax legally. Doesn't everybody do that or try to do that?
Unfortunately, Kuj, it's almost like asking me, does everybody exhibit common sense? As Mama Cash used to tell me, common sense isn't so common. So no, unfortunately, matter of fact, I can tell you with a surety, 99.999% of the population of the planet, not just the United States, pay the maximum legal tax. But we are only obligated to pay the minimum legal tax. And that's the same tax that the rich pay. That's why Warren Buffett can say he pays less in taxes than his secretary. That's why there was a New York Times article about 4 years ago that did an expose on, you know, how the rich don't pay their fair share. And they came to the conclusion that the rich pay little to nothing. And the emphasis was on nothing, Kuj. That many of the rich pay absolutely nothing in taxes, i.e. the minimum legal tax.
Now, another one of the principles that you use in your business is the idea of not owning, that the rich own nothing but control everything. What do you mean by that?
You know, Kuj, up until about 15 years ago, that age-old saying or phrase made absolutely no sense to me. Matter of fact, Kuj, that phrase seemed like just the opposite of what could be possible. How do the rich own nothing but control everything? How do you own nothing and control everything? But the third part of it came into play as I began to get these nuggets of wisdom, these crumbs of insight, instruction, of knowledge from thousands of enormously successful entrepreneurs and wealthy people. And as I said, the rich own nothing, but control everything. And here's the third part, Kuj, through these artificial people. So the rich personally, the human beings, don't own much, if anything. They have these artificial people, estates, trusts, corporations, and LLCs own it, and then they control those assets through those artificial people. So the rich own nothing but control everything through and vis-a-vis artificial people, legal people. So that's how they do it.
Now, the other concept that you talk about is living your life as a business rather than as a consumer. Could you explain that?
Yes. living your life as a business, or what we like to say is running your life as a business. What Greenlight specializes is in strategies, structures, and tactics that allow ordinary people to experience extraordinary financial results and trajectories. You don't have to have $400 million to ratchet that up. So basically, the way it works is basically like this. There are basically two major models to handling your financial affairs: the consumer model and the producer investor model. So those are the two major models. And let me just say this before I kind of give a little detail on both. For all your folks who are listening, if you are conducting your financial affairs as a human being, you'll never make it. Let me repeat that, Kuj, because it might sound controversial, but at the end of this program, people understand exactly what I'm talking about. If you are conducting your financial affairs as a human being, either you won't make it, or if you do make it, you'll give it all back, either to the tax man or creditors or etc. So that's how lottery winners and pro athletes, even before they retire, and movie stars and other celebrities, unfortunately become cliches on the front page newspapers. So what do I mean by that? The consumer model means you do not make a heavy emphasis and use of these legal people, these artificial people. Again, while they are the same equivalent from a legal point of view, and in terms of rights and privileges and all the assets they can own and maintain and leverage, that's where the similarities stop, Kuj. Artificial people, corps, LLCs, trusts, and estates, as it relates to money, have some distinct advantages. Primary advantage: the definition of income is completely different. So what's the definition of income for every human being on the planet? It's simply every dollar you get, right? So if you're in the United States, any money you get, whether it's W-2 or 1099, or somebody gives you some money in cash and you don't declare it, all of that is considered income. Matter of fact, every dollar a human being gets is defined as income, and therefore taxable, because only income is taxable. And that's a distinction that your listeners need to know right up front. Only income is taxable. But every dollar that you get as an individual, as a consumer, is income. So that's why I said, if you're conducting your affairs as a human being, all you're going to be doing is going through rounds of income as you take money in, and it's going to be taxable. When you do the producer model, and again, I'll give you an analogy, a mental word picture, if I may, Kuj. Think about a bucket. Think about a bucket. Let's go back to the consumer model for a second. Think about a bucket that's got water coming into it. The consumer model, envision a bucket where the water comes in one direction and goes out in two. So eventually what's going to happen to the water in that bucket? It's going to fill up, right? I mean, it's going to empty out. And so there's your lottery winners, there's your pro athletes before they retire, there's your movie stars and other celebrities. Money's coming in by the millions. Matter of fact, wealth has very little to do with money as in terms of getting that trajectory. It has to do with mindset, perspective, and relationship with money. But you got this bucket, water's coming in one direction, it's going out in two, so it's going to empty. So that's the consumer model. The producer investor model, imagine the same bucket, but the water is coming in three directions and going out in maybe one or on two. So what's going to happen to the water in that bucket? Well, it's going to fill up, Kuj, and you got to get another bucket, and that's going to fill up, and you have to get another bucket. Doesn't that sound a lot like the rich continuing to get richer? So you could operate out of the consumer model, which 99.9% of the people in the United States and even more throughout the world operate under, and you unfortunately die broke, you lose, right? Or you can operate in the producer investor model, where you got the water coming in multiple directions, only going out in a fewer stream of directions, and those buckets are going to be filling up. So that's what I mean by consumer model versus producer investor model.
In conjunction with that principle, one of the principles I know you promote is never buying depreciates. But of course, that includes cars. How do you work that?
Well, as a man who drives or has access to 7 BMW, Greenlight is blessed to have a little mini fleet of BMWs. And again, you know why? Business, money, and wealth coaches, which are the 3 critical success elements to financial empowerment, business success, and wealth creation. So we have a little mini fleet of BMWs. Beautiful cars. Matter of fact, the latest addition to the fleet is a 2015 BMW X5M series with all the trimmings, probably an $85,000 SUV. We didn't buy it, Kuj. So first of all, I didn't buy it. Key distinction. You want to do all your transactions from the presence of an artificial person, a legal person. And Greenlight didn't buy it. Those are all corporate leased. Why? And again, I always ask the questions why. I always tell my clients to ask the questions why. I always want to empower people as I'm on tour to answer the question why. People who know how, Kuj, always end up working for or making less money than people who know why. So if you want to be the gal or guy with most of the money at the end of the transaction, you must have the answers to why. The reason you don't buy depreciating assets is 2 reasons. One, you, the human, shouldn't be buying anything, even if it's appreciating. That's number 1. You don't get any of the tax benefits or other advantages that those other people, the legal people, have over you as a human. Number 2, we both know that $85,000 SUV that's about 6 months old, as soon as it drove off the lot, who knows, it went down to 80,000 and it's continued to rot in my driveway. So why would anyone want to own that, Kuj? You know, so at the end of the car's useful life, let's say 5 to 7 years, it's virtually worthless. So that's the last thing you want to do. The rich only buy appreciating assets, and they buy them through and vis-a-vis these artificial people, these legal people. They don't buy them directly, because if they get sued, if somebody rich and or famous gets sued, what happens if they have a lot of assets in their name? Well, that person that sued them, you know, in this country, even a frivolous lawsuit can amount to a settlement at the very least, or that other person might win. So they just hit the lottery. So you don't want to have your valuable appreciating assets in your name. So that's just another piece of it. The rich buy collectible art, right? That used to cook my noodle when I was growing up. Why do they spend $5-10 million or more for a canvas with oil on it from Van Gogh or Andy Warhol? Well, answer simple. Andy Warhol's unfortunately dead. Kuj, he's not painting any more paintings. So that painting, if it starts at $5 million, it's going to continue to appreciate. So the rich buy appreciating assets as opposed to depreciating assets and or cash flow producing activities like businesses. They don't spend their money buying depreciating assets. It's a race to the bottom.
Now, you also talk about the mindset of the wealthy as opposed to the mindset of the poor. What's the difference?
Okay, great question. First and foremost, all your listeners should know that there are very few differences between them and the rich. It has nothing to do with the money difference, the monetary difference. Because I talked about lottery winners and pro athletes earlier who make a lot of money, right? The number one difference between the rich and those who are poor, middle class, or aspiring to be rich is just 3 things. The rich have a very different overall mindset. They have a much more productive and complete perspective, and they have a very, very enhanced relationship with money. So mindset, perspective, and relationship with money is the only thing separating your listeners to people like Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates and Donald Trump and Warren Buffett. That's the only thing separating the 2 groups. mindset, perspective, and relationship with money. And those are all a function of knowing what structure to be in, meaning you shouldn't be conducting your financial affairs as a human being. It's strange and counterintuitive as that might sound. You'll never make it. You'll always be taking in income and always be a day late and a dollar short, or as they like to say, too much month at the end of the month. You want to be in the producer investor model where you're primarily doing transactions vis-a-vis these artificial people. So that's really the difference: mindset, perspective, and relationship with money. The rich know that only income is taxable. The rich know that. The poor, the middle class, and the aspiring rich know that only to the degree that they have to pay their taxes. And I always advocated that you pay your taxes. Matter of fact, my clients, some of them get unreported income, and I say, okay, we're not doing that anymore. You're going to report every dollar. I don't care if you get it in cash, wire it into your account, or what way you get it. As long as legitimate legal money, you're going to report it. But you're going to be conducting your affairs in a very different manner, where you're going to be paying the minimum legal tax. And I think you're going to be very happy with what that number comes out to be, even though you're reporting every penny of income. So the rich know that their perspective with money is that only income is taxable, so they avoid income like the plague. There are other types of cash flows that come in, Kuj, and they have nothing to do with income. So if you can avoid income, then obviously you can pay the minimum legal tax.
Now, I know you speak with groups all over the country, and you have a special interest in speaking with African Americans and Hispanic groups and helping them grab some of these concepts. One of the things I'm sure you're working against is the idea, I call it portable wealth. In the Hispanic and the African American community, the emphasis is on brand name everythings, Chevys, Regal, Cadillacs, and wealth that you can carry around and show. How do they react to your position, and how do you raise their level of consciousness?
Well, when I'm dealing with people who are Black, brown, and beige, so I'm mainly talking about African American and Hispanic community. Matter of fact, about 90% of my staff is bilingual, meaning they speak English and Spanish. It's a struggle, Kuj, to be absolutely candid. It's a challenge. It's an obstacle, because as a people, we were not raised to have that overall mindset, perspective, and relationship with money. We were taught, like you said early in the program, to get a good education and then get a good job, work hard, and then the corporation will take care of you, right? And you retire with a great pension and the gold watch. Well, I'm 52 years old, Kuj, and that reality is long since sailed, right? That ship has sailed a long time ago. So there's no more gold watches. People are going to have, on average, probably 5 to 7 at the very least employers in their lifetime, if not more. And now it's all about jobs, unfortunately, rather than careers. So when I deal with the African American community, it's getting them to understand the value proposition. See, because the most valuable legacy or item in the legacy that a rich man gives his kids is these philosophies, these principles, not the money. More often than not, you'll see rich people only give a small fraction of their overall wealth to their kids. And there's a reason for that. Because if they give them, let's say a guy's worth $100 million and he gives his kid $10 million. Now, probably some of our Black and Hispanic listeners would say, well, that guy's being cheap. He's giving it mostly to charity. What about his kids? But the most important, the most productive, the most positive asset that man, that rich man, is giving his kids in terms of legacy is these principles, which are immutable. They're eternal, like the laws of gravity. And they articulate to their kids in a way that the kids can take that $10 million and turn it into many multiples more during their lifetime, 100, 200, 300, $500 million or more, and really make a name for themselves with a relatively, percentage-wise anyway, small amount of money. So African Americans don't understand that. Plus, you mentioned the other piece, we're unfortunately constantly investing our money, and I use that word very, very loosely. Of course, I'm doing air quotes right now, in depreciating assets. If we're buying cars, unless they're limited edition or collector's item, you shouldn't be buying a car. If we're buying any of the things, look, in the 3 houses in the Northeast anyway, that Greenlight owns, every stick of furniture in this home, probably $50,000 or $60,000 worth of furniture, is corporate leased. Why? Now, this is top of the line furniture. It's from one of Warren Buffett's companies, so it's top of the line, but it's still depreciating assets. You ever see what a dress is worth 4 or 5 years later when you get ready to move into your next apartment or house? It's virtually worthless. Matter of fact, you almost have to pay somebody to take it out of your place. So that's a race to the bottom. So you want to take these philosophies, principles, and approaches to their ultimate final destination. You don't buy depreciating assets. It's just going to continue to undermine your financial trajectory. How are you ever going to get ahead if you're buying depreciating assets? So this $40,000 worth of furniture, let's say in his house, if the average African American bought it, they would either run their credit cards up. So now they've got, credit card debt with a 25% or so interest rate. It's going to be worthless at the end of its useful life, 5, 6, 7 years from now or less. And it's not productive assets. It's not making you any money. You're not in the furniture business. If you're in the furniture business, then let's go ahead and buy some furniture. But if you're using it as just part of your lifestyle and living, get good stuff. I believe in quality over quantity, but don't buy depreciating assets. So that's probably the top talk. The other part of it, when I'm dealing with African Americans and Hispanics, is the first rule of wealth creation is to protect and keep, Kuj, what you already have. If you can't protect and keep what you already have legally from the tax man, from creditors, or from frivolous lawsuits or other unexpected events, then you won't get rich. And if you do, you'll give it back. If you do, you'll give it back. So the first rule of wealth creation is to protect and to keep what you already have. Then once you've protected it and kept it, then you can leverage it to get to higher financial trajectories.
Now, what other routes the most effective?
You might have to repeat that, Coach. The audio went out there for a second.
What are the most effective routes, in your opinion, to accumulate?
Okay. Can you hear me okay, Coach? Because the audio is going in and out.
Okay, I can hear. I was asking you, what were the most effective routes for your accumulating wealth? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that fine. Well, first and foremost, you have to understand the 4 ways that you make money. You can earn it, you can save it, you can inherit it, or you can steal it. Those are the only 4 ways you can make money. Earn it, save it, inherit it, or steal it. So first, you have to know how money comes in. Obviously, I'm advocating the first 3 and not the 4th one through illicit means. But the chances of inheriting it are probably few and far between unless you have a rich relative and nobody wants to sit over somebody's house waiting for them to die. So that's probably not a productive way to make your money. So you want to earn it or save it, but I advocate the earn it method. Not that I have a problem with saving per se, philosophically. One thing you should keep in mind, Kuj, the rich don't save money. The rich accumulate cash. They don't save money. Saving implies you're scrimping and eating ramen noodles and sacrificing a whole bunch of things that you really need, but you're gonna not buy them so you can save the money. The problem with saving money, by the way, and again, it's philosophical. The rich don't save money. They accumulate cash. And they have a lot more in their bank accounts than the people who are saving money. When you save money, typically you can't save it quick enough and it takes too long. So by the time you saved enough of it to be considered to be high net worth or rich, you're usually like 80 or 90 years old. So you end up dying and leaving it to your kids or loved ones. So that's no fun. Life is meant to be lived, and of course life is short. So you want to enjoy the use of that money while you're here. You want to earn it, okay? And ultimately you want to have the money work for you as opposed to you working for the money, but you want to earn it. So what route do you take was your question. Well, there's only one route, Cooch. Your listeners might be surprised, they might be shocked, they might be alarmed to know there is only one way most likely to produce financial independence. Cooch, there's only one way to produce financial prosperity. Cooch, there's only one way to get financial freedom. There's only one way. There's only one way most likely to produce financial prosperity, independence, and freedom. And that is, you must own a significant stake in a successful, profitable, sustainable business. I'll repeat that. The only way most likely to result in financial prosperity, independence, and full financial freedom is to own a significant stake, preferably 100%, Cooch, in a successful, sustainable, profitable business. Let me give you just a little breakdown of that, if I may, so I can let your listeners know how do we add that score up, because it might sound like fuzzy math to them. There are 7 principal types of personal wealth, and all of them have as their common denominator a successful business. They got equity wealth. That's like Mark Zuckerberg. He owns, I don't know, 15, 20% of a very successful business. Since the business is worth billions, his 20% is worth billions. So that's called equity wealth. Then you got post-equity wealth, which is technically where I'm at now. I sold out my computer business about 10 years ago, north of $10 million. So I have post-equity wealth. Bill Gates is another guy, a little known secret. Bill Gates has pretty much sold out most of his stake in Microsoft over the years. So he's post-equity wealth. And there's others, but that's post-equity wealth. You got corporate wealth for the few among us that have these wonderful corporate jobs. They don't own a stick of furniture, but they make $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, $7 million. God bless them. There's not many of them. That's corporate wealth. You got inherited wealth. Don't have to explain that. You have fortuitous wealth. That's if you hit the lottery or the sweepstakes, right? Obviously, very little chance of that happening. And you have celebrity wealth. Again, that's if you're a pro athlete or, movie star or popular recording artist. And then, of course, you have illicit wealth. And I only mention it because it is one of the personal types, one of the principal types of personal wealth. But if you look at all of them, Cooch, all 7, they all have as their common denominator and basis a successful business, even the sweepstakes. You talk about the Powerball. Let's say you're in New York and you win the mega sweepstakes. New York State is a corporation. Newsflash. Every state in the union is a corporation. Technically, United States of America is a corporation. So you're not dealing with, you're dealing with only with legal people, in this case, businesses. And of course, all the others are, if you're a celebrity and you're making endorsement money and you're doing all that, where are you getting that money from? You're getting it from Coca-Cola, you're getting it from Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, corporations, right? So the only way most likely to result in financial prosperity, independence, and full financial freedom, you must have a stake in a successful, profitable business. Even if, Cooch, that business is running your life as a business. Even if that business is running your life as a business. And I guess we'll get into that in a little bit.
Well, one of the principles you advocate is not only having a business, but having multiple businesses, including low profile or secret business. What do you mean by that?
It sounds so clandestine when you say it, Coach. But let me just say this. I mentioned earlier in the program that the number one principle of our success formula at Greenlight, which is called no personal gain. And if you think about that, that'll kind of give you a little bit of idea of what the base of it all is. But the number one principle, as I mentioned, is that there are two types of people on planet Earth: legal people and living people, and the rich exploit, manipulate, and control legal people to their ultimate financial benefit and trajectory. There's a second rule or principle. I don't like the word rule. There's a second principle that the rich use, and they have two types of businesses, Cooch. One kind of business we call, which is their primary business, which we call their revenue and cash flow producing business. And again, businesses like Coca-Cola and Microsoft and IBM and Walmart all fall into this category, Greenlight. Matter of fact, for your listeners, it's every business that they ever know. Every business that they ever know would be considered this revenue and cash flow producing business, primary business, published, well known, right? But then the rich have a second type of business, Cooch. And this is a business that they don't like to talk about at cocktail parties. And at Greenlight, we call this secondary business a new lifestyle business, a new lifestyle business. That's what we call it. We have a very special vocabulary, and we use metaphors and symbolisms so that ordinary folks can duplicate and make actionable the same types of approaches that the rich do to get the same kind of result they get. So this second type of business, which again, the rich keep very much hush-hush, that they don't like to talk about at cocktail parties, and they certainly wouldn't be talking to you or I or anyone who's not in their immediate sphere, we call a new lifestyle business. And a new lifestyle business allows the rich, Cooch, to run their life as a business. Now, what does that metaphor mean? That metaphor means when you run your life as a business, you're able to get 4 beneficial and advantageous results out of it at the minimum. There's so many more, but I'll give you the top 4. Number 1, you're able to finance your personal life and lifestyle through this secondary business. The rich enjoy many, if not most, if not all of what we would consider their lifestyle and personal to get business write-offs for. But there's a special way to do it. Number 2, in running your life as a business through a new lifestyle business, is you're able to protect yourself personally and your assets from legal issues, liabilities, and encumbrances. So when the rich person gets sued, Cooch, what usually happens? Ta-da, absolutely nothing. Why? Because they don't own anything in their names. So Mr. Rich Man or Mrs. Rich Lady doesn't own assets or even the money in the bank in their name. So when you sue them, you end up with nothing. And you can go to numerous examples of that even in recent years, which your readers can look up on Google. So the number 2 advantage of running your life as a business vis-a-vis a new lifestyle business is they enjoy legal protections for themselves personally and for their assets. Number 3, any investments that they have within this kind of a structure and system, they get better gains, yields, or profits or dividends. So within this kind of system, you get better gains, yields, and dividends than you would in the other structure, okay? Not running your life as a business. Finally, last but not least, we always put it last, clients always want to put it first, you're able to pay the minimum legal tax. Like the rich, you pay little to nothing. That's minimum. It's always legal. You use the same legal loopholes the rich use, and of course you have to pay your taxes. Let no one say Terrence Cash and Greenlight said anything but you have to pay taxes in this country. You just are not obligated to pay the maximum legal tax, which is what's unfortunately 99.9% of your viewers and listeners are paying currently at the moment. So running your life as a business, these 4 outcomes, these 4 results and advantages show up, and that's what we mean by running your life as a business.
What do you mean when you say creating wealth by leveraging your assets? How do you do that, and what does that mean?
Okay, when I say creating wealth by leveraging your assets, every one of your listeners has some assets. Now, unfortunately, most of them are probably depreciating, whether they're rotting in the driveway or they're rotting in their closet or on their shoe rack. They have assets. Usually, most Americans, their primary, and I use the quotations, assets, because I do agree with Robert Kiyosaki, I don't consider your primary residence an asset. But what we mean is the rich also always make sure that they have their assets aligned in the line of money, meaning they're always in the right structure, they're always employing the right strategies, and they're always executing the right tactics. So structure, strategy, and tactics is how you're able to leverage your assets. Because right now, many of your viewers have assets. Some of your viewers might be doing very well. We have clients that come to us that have come into the sudden acquisition of wealth. Unfortunately, it's usually through inheritance. Someone had to die. But, you know, the problem is they know that lottery winners run out of money. They know that pro athletes, retire broke. I mean, the average NBA player today makes about $4.6 million, Kuj, but yet 70% of all NBA players will retire broke. That's a fact. I mean, men lie, women lie, but facts, figures, and results never lie. And so that's a fact. And of course, the newspapers are littered with examples of people who make a lot of money who are going broke. They have taxes in arrears with their home state and the IRS. Why is that? These people are making millions of dollars. That's because they're not in the right structure. They're not using the right strategies, and not employing the right tactics. So that makes all the difference. And I hope your listeners understand it's not about having a lot of money, because you see people with a lot of money and we just take it as an automatic, well, you know, they overspend. I can tell you that the people I know and have met over the years who are worth 500 million, 700 million, and then in the billions spend a lot more money than those celebrities you see on TV. But yet, again, going back to the bucket analogy, the water's coming in 3 directions and only going out in 1 or 2. So it doesn't matter what their spending is. For the most part, they have a cash machine. You know, they have activities, and they have assets that are going to continue to bring more money, more cash flow to the table. So the rich always make sure they're in the line of money, and that's how they do.
I have another question for you. It's a trap that a lot of I know entrepreneurs run into. I call it the cost of money trap, which is somebody comes to you and says, well, I know how you can make $100 million if you give me $25 million. Is that a good thing?
Well, Coach, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. But, you know, it's sad because we don't have the right mindset, perspective, and relationship with money. Our communities are especially susceptible to that type of approach. No, that's not going to work, guys. If you give somebody $25 million and they're going to make you $100 million, those type of deals are reserved only for the rich. They are set in smoke-filled rooms with people that know each other and that we all would know if we were in that room. And those kind of deals are only spoken among them. The poor, the middle class, and the aspiring rich don't get access to those kind of deals. So you have to be making the seeds of your own future. And again, like I said, the only way most likely to produce that is through a successful business, even if it's only running your life as a business. So that's not the right approach. The right approach, again, first and foremost, protect and keep what you already have. If you have a 9-to-5 job, folks, and you're making $45,000, protect and keep your $45,000, maximizing it by paying the minimum legal tax. That's the first thing you need to do. There was a chapter in a book that I read recently called Economic Warfare by Ziad Abdel-Nour. Ziad Abdel-Nour is a billionaire. He was a Lebanese. His family is part of the Lebanese parliament. And he just runs a little $10 billion hedge fund. That's all he runs. Well, he has the book, in one of the chapters of the book, it gave these two parallel paths of an investment that was making, almost doubling every day. It was fictional, of course. And to boot with a 10% interest rate on it, which of course is fictional. In the minimum legal tax example or track, that dollar, which it doubled every day and had 10% interest on it, but no taxes, grew to over $1,057,000. The second example, same dollar, doubled every day, 10% interest, but with a nominal 33% tax rate. And a lot of your listeners, Kuj, are paying a lot more than 33% between state, local, and federal. What was the money amassed in 20 years from that second approach with the same input? $28,000, Kuj. A difference of $1 million, over $1 million. So in the first example, you would clearly be able to say I'm a millionaire because you would have amassed over $1,057,000. In the second example, same money came in, but just because you didn't protect and keep what you already have by paying the minimum legal tax, among other techniques, you have $28,000, not even enough money to buy a depreciating asset like a luxury automobile if you were well versed to do so.
Now, Terrence, you maintain that money only makes you more of what you are. What does that mean?
Yeah, actually, Kuj, I usually say on Life Revisited tours or when I'm talking to clients one-on-one, that money only makes you more of who you already are. So if you're a kind, generous, supportive, positive individual, when you come into some money or you earn some money that is significant, you're going to be an even kinder, more generous, more positive and productive human being and individual. But if you have not worked on your core while you've been working on your money, when you come into some money, then you're going to start abusing people. You're going to start abusing people. And I know many of the people I've talked to, they said that an individual they knew was a nice person until they came into some money or came into what they thought was some money. And then they changed. And my answer, Kuj, is always, they didn't change. They were suppressed. Very difficult to be arrogant, Kuj, when your pockets are hanging inside out, right? So they didn't change. When they came into the money, then they were able to let their true inner selves shine. And again, they started abusing people and possibly being arrogant. So money makes you more of who you already are. So your listeners should know and definitely work on their core. Because if you're not working on your core, your spirit, if you will, and your whole who you're being in the world, what kind of possibilities you are in the world, then all the money in the world won't make you a better person. So that's important. Your listeners should always work on their core while they're working on their money.
Are you trying to say that money cannot solve all problems?
Well, money can only solve the problems that are designed to be solved by money. So no, money cannot solve all problems. There's an old saying, Kuj, I know you're familiar with it. It says, money can't make you happy. And I certainly agree with that. But I have like a corollary to it. My corollary is, but it sure as hell does console your misery. So what I'm saying is very simple. If you don't have enough money, Kuj, you're going to be miserable. So I understand the sentiment about money doesn't make you happy, but if you don't have enough of it, and unfortunately, maybe many of your listeners around the globe might not have enough money. Maybe there's too much month at the end of the money. And, it can make you miserable, it can make you crazy, it can make you depressed. So you must have sufficient and hopefully a prosperous amounts of money. And that's what our program is all about at Greenlight. But the main thing is that money won't solve the problems that money wasn't designed to solve. So you have to know, again, this is through your mindset, perspective, and relationship with money. You have to know what money is and what money isn't. You have to know what money can do and what money can't do. Money can't make you a better person because it only makes you, it's a magnifying glass. It only makes you more of who you already are. So if you want to be a kinder, more generous person, coming into a lot of money is not going to make you kinder and more generous, even though that might seem not to be the case. So no, money is only designed to solve certain problems, not all problems.
Before giving out your contact information, let me ask you one more content question or principle question. What role, if any, does spirituality play in creating and maintaining wealth?
Well, that is at the center of working on your core while you're working on your money, Kuj. Your spirituality, and no matter what religion you are or belief system, your spirituality as to who you are in the world and how you're going to treat people and how you interact. I mean, you have billions of us on this planet. So it's pretty obvious that one of our main purposes on this planet is to relate to each other. And the other piece of that is anything that you would call a blessing is going to come from the hands of a man or a woman. God is not going to dematerialize out of thin air and say, my child, here, take this $200,000 and, live long and be prosperous. Any blessings you're going to get are going to come from a human being. So as Mama Cash used to always say, be careful how you treat people. It literally pays to be nice to people. Literally pays because you don't know where your blessings have come from. So it's all about how we interact. I mean, many of the principles of many religions and belief systems all are about, you reap what you sow. And, if you treat someone bad, you're going to get that back, the karmic kind of a belief system. So it's all about how we relate to each other. So belief system, religion, spirituality is very important because at the end of the day, there are numerous things that money can't buy, and how you treat people and how you want to be a blessed. You're supposed to be blessed to be a blessing, right? It's not all about you. You didn't, the things that really make money all come from God, right? He's the author of all wealth. So if you're not acknowledging that and you're just kind of keeping and hurting everything to yourself, then that's not going to be a positive and productive existence, during this this human experience you're engaged in.
Well, one of the things I want to do is thank you for returning from your retirement to share with us some of this wisdom. Could you give us an idea of how your current business model works and how people can get in contact with you to secure your personal services and consultation?
Oh, I appreciate that, Kuj. Again, a lot of people want to make it all about me. I understand because I'm the chairman and the head BMW coach, that's business, money, and wealth coach. But I have 27 world-class people that work for me all around the country, in New York and New Jersey, Philadelphia, and others that are experts in their field of endeavor, and they make me look good and make it possible for us to deal with over 1,500 clients that we have all around the country. We have clients in every state of the union. So basically, there's a couple ways clients can, or prospective clients or interested parties can interact. Probably the first way that I'll give is we always have a Monday night call. And for those who are looking at the program, you can see my email address, which is simply T as in Terrence, Cash, C-A-S-H, at greenlightsvcs.com. So that's Tcash at Greenlight, S as in Sam, V as in Victory, C as in Cat, S as in Sam again.com. So that's my corporate email. But every Monday night, we have a national group conference call where I field Q&A. I don't know if we're going to have a Q&A tonight, but I field Q&A. I tell a little bit more in depth about my entrepreneurial journey. So I want to give that number out. That number is 646 area code 854-4031.
Would you bring that number up on your screen?
You know what? That overlay I do not see, Kuj. It's not up.
Okay, no problem. We'll put it on the side.
Okay. So We do a national group conference call every Monday. No pins, no access codes. You dial in, and you can be part of the discussion and ask questions. Obviously, we have, and that's probably the first way that people can talk to me, because unfortunately, at this point, the company has been very prosperous. That's not unfortunate, but it just means that on the front end of receiving potential clients, I have to do the group thing. Now, on the back end, when I'm coaching, it's one-on-one. So it's always a one-on-one thing on the back end. But on the front end, we deal with literally hundreds and hundreds of interested parties every month. And so if I had to deal with them one-on-one before they became clients, I wouldn't have time, unfortunately, to coach my clients. We also have a Life Revisited tour conference and roadshow. I believe we're going to be in New York City. I want to say the second Saturday in August, and also in August, I think we also have a tour date up in the Boston area. But if people are interested in us coming out to their town, they should tell us what their interest is, and if they have enough interested parties, we'll come on out. We'll come on out. Let me also give the company's phone number, 646 area code 308-1365. That's 646-308-1365. My extension to my office is 202. Now, again, your listeners should know that I have a full plate of clients, strategic partners, because again, we specialize in this BMW coaching. We do capital and we do credit, as we like to say. We like to say the 3 C's, coaching, capital, and credit. And so I'm usually on the phone 12 to 13 hours a day. So usually I make phone calls who have already been arranged and briefings. So, but if you call that number, you'll certainly have somebody who'll pick up the phone. You can tell whoever picks up the phone to that you enjoyed the broadcast and that you were looking for additional information. Probably a better resource would be my Vice President of Client Services, Ms. Catherine Maruri. She can be reached at the same phone number, 646-308-1365, but her extension is 211. So her extension is 211. And her email is simply her first name, Catherine with a K, KATHERINE @greenlightsvcs.com. So she fields a lot of it. She's got a team of about 6 people that help her in client services and solutions. So that might be better. But certainly you can email me at tcash@greenlightsvcs.com, and certainly feel free to come on the call tomorrow.
Now, in conclusion, I like to ask our guests just general advice, books, and references on whatever topic that we're dealing with on empowerment. I know for me and in my journey in this topic of creating wealth, the 3 books that have inspired me were Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandingo, and Positioning by Jack Trout and Al Weiss. Final thoughts. What general advice, books, or references would you recommend for further reading by our audience?
Well, until my book comes out, No Personal Gain, subtitled No One Ever Said That the Road to Riches Would Be Easy, pregnant pause, until now. My book will be out late this year or early part of 2016. But until that comes out, I'll tell your clients, your listeners, that basically, if you want to go somewhere, if you're trying to get somewhere, there's always 3 things I look at. Tell me what books you read. Tell me what people you hang out with, who you hang out with, and tell me how you spend your time and your money. And I'll tell you where you're going and who you are. So 2 books I'll tell you that are current reads of mine is Tony Robbins' book about money. I think captures some of what I talked about tonight, but then he gets into a little more details on more of the financial markets as opposed to the overall picture. But Tony Robbins' book about money, and as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Ziad Abdel Noor's book, Economic Warfare, is tremendous, a real page turner. And you know, I'm constantly looking for new books. The books you mentioned are certainly classics. They're staples. They certainly could read those. You know, Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which essentially was my experience. I had one poor dad, my biological father, and probably over 1,000 rich dads. All of these very kind, wealthy people that gave me crumbs of wisdom. So I certainly would recommend that book. But the two books that I'd recommend in a current read, Tony Robbins' new book, Money, and Ziad Abdul Noor's book, Economic Warfare.
Terrence, one final question. Is your real name Cash?
Believe it or not, my real name is Cash. I had been teased about that name for many years, especially when I was in the technology business. And only until about the last 5 or 6 years did it become, you know, relevant, because now, you know, I run a BMW coaching firm. But yes, absolutely.
Well, Terrence, thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom. To my audience, thank you for joining us. Until next time, this has been The Kuj Show. Empower yourself. Peace out.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.